come on in and join us. Bill just put me on his payroll to make this announcement. Royalties, please, first. Is anybody outside? Is everybody in with their coffee? Shall I what? Did you? Oh, good. I was asked to introduce the next speaker. You've got a little bit of his bio in your presentation, in your brochure, but I don't know how and where to start with the bio for this young man. He's younger than me, so I call him young man, because it's about 17, 18 pages. It's very long. David and I know them very well. They're family members to us. We've just adore them because the work that they do. As a young man in Pakistan, he started his career to become a medical doctor. And when he did, then he didn't like being a doctor too much and decided he wanted to be a journalist. Went to Russia, went to Pakistan, wrote about things that people were not supposed to be writing about and got into trouble. And then went around the world and is very well-known author, publisher. But the best thing about him is he's an awesome poet to die for, pull your heartstrings. That's what I like best about him. So when I was needing a real brother, you know my story about the brother? I asked him, I said, will you be my brother? So he doesn't call me Aruna, he calls me Didi, that means older sister. It is, and he and his wife Halima, they do so much volunteer work in the community with issues that he will discuss. I worry that they will never be rich. They will never make money. And I'm constantly telling him, you don't have to feed people. You don't have to do this. He said, yes, I do. So they are the highlight of that community that are standing up and saying, no more. This is Canada, put Canada first. Both of them are very dear to me. My brother, Tahir Gora.
Thank you, Didi, my sister. Thank you, Bill, and all of you. Let me share a few glimpses of my life story with you. I was born in Lahore, heart of Punjab, Pakistan. However, I grew up in a city called Kasur, about 50 kilometers southeast of Lahore. Our home was close to a Punjabi Sufi saint shrine, Bulle Shah. Islamic clerics refused to offer burial prayers when he died in mid-1600s. His views were too blasphemous for them because he refused to follow organized religion. He recognized this universe as his God. He talked about unity of Hindus, Sikhs, Muslims, and Christians, and denounced religious institutions. On my way from school to home, I used to stop by his shrine. I started pondering, what is my identity? The very first answer I got from my heart, of course, I am a human. And then belonging to my Punjabi heritage, I'm Punjabi. Punjabi culture is enriched with music, spices, colorful dresses, open ideas, beautiful language, vast variety of food, and secular Sufi traditions. But people surrounding me such as my teachers, relatives, and Islamic clerics, were imposing my identity as Muslim on me. At that time, I didn't have much knowledge of Islam or any religion. So I was not confronting Islam or any religion, but protesting on new imposed identity, what they call Islam. I used to say to my mother, it's fine, Islam is my religion, but my identity is Punjabi. I'm a Punjabi at first place, and I could be a Muslim by faith, that I don't care. I didn't know the meanings of faith then. Later I realized faith is something we live through. I noticed all those Islamic clerics who were identifying Muslims as their faith, but they were not living their lives according to religion. They were just living their lives. No one lives through a religion. We all live a life, and life itself is a faith. Religion couldn't be more than a spices. If we choose to add a spice in our life, we can add religion as well. Otherwise, life without that flavor itself a complete faith. As I grew up and started my high school and engaged myself into political, social, literary, and philosophical discourses, I realized religion is a cause of destruction of everything. Religion divided my Punjab in 1947. It caused bloody migration on both sides of India and Pakistan. Muslims got slaughtered. Religion was a cause of hatred to my own Indian Punjabi heritage and rest of the mankind and civilizations as well. However, this realization didn't create hatred within me against religion. Because I discovered my own inherited religion, Islam, has gone through so many political manifestos, it would not go away anywhere, so we should deal it in the terms of reforming it tactfully and strategically. As I arrived in Canada in April 1999, with the hope that I could initiate my ideas to reform Islam here in Canada. I started doing that through my weekly newspaper, and guess what happened? Mosques and their proponents started threatening. I was shocked that it could happen in Canada. However, it was more shocking when some Canadian politicians approached me to not hurt feelings of my own Muslim community. Those politicians acted on behalf of mosques because they were their vote banks. So imagining no religion is becoming more challenging in our times. I mean, in 21st century. It looks like challenging religion a century ago, and in some cases a millennium ago, was easier than today. Today, many of us seem gearing up calling blasphemous each other. In Canada, our parliament has recently passed a motion called M103, anti-Islamophobic motion. But no one thinks that 1 million Muslims arrived here in Canada due to fear of Islam in their back homes. It is not easy for us to gather here against the wind of populism and in a very highly polarized environment. Our opponents call us traitors and infidels, but we are here to share voice of the voiceless, silent majority of the population who's the sufferer in the hands of religious fanatics. We are here to share concerns of those who are concerned about mixing religion with politics. Unfortunately, most politicians from right, left, and center are playing their religious emotions for their short-term political gains, but they are unable to understand the magnitude of damage they are causing to our societies. Politicians of right faction these days are using fear of Islamic extremism to gain their popularity. Politicians from left and center accommodating Islamic extremists and other hardliners to enhance their vote pockets all over. Whichever faction makes government is followed by similar policymakers, bureaucrats, technocrats, business corporations, law enforcement agencies, and media generally. Open environment to challenge religious stupidity has been further deteriorated by a rising culture of political correctness. So there is hardly a room left for imagining no religion in our so-called modern times today. I can recall a friend of mine, a Punjabi Sikh, who got converted to Islam. He was asked to be circumcised at the first place. After a couple of months, he realized that his new faith doesn't work for him. He decided to leave Islam and shares his decision with a fellow Muslim cleric. The fellow Muslim cleric advised him that after converting to Islam, one cannot leave it. He further advised him if he decides to leave it, they'll cut his head. My Sikh friend responded to him, "What sort of your religion is? This requires cutting my lower part as I accept it, and it requires cutting my upper part as I leave it." So, dear friends, imagining no religion is not practical in today's practical world. This fantasy and utopia don't work, don't matter anymore. Surely one can mock religions generally in comedy shows and jokes openly in our societies. Audience would enjoy that mockery, but would not appreciate it if to confront religious dogmas in their day-to-day life. Western world claims to separate religion from state, but now they are inviting other religions to mix with their state affairs. This time, not Christianity, but Islam. So public schools and government offices are offering prayer rooms and religious accommodation. Motions such as M103 is calling critics of Islam, Islamic ideology, and Islamophobe. None of the Canadian institutions meant for free press, such as PEN Canada and Canadian Journalists for Free Expression, condemned this motion. Advocates for free press, however, condemned ban on burqa in the name of freedom of expression. Burqa, or veil, is a clear sign of gender segregation, for instance, but our secular and non-religious institutions working for free press support burqa as if they are supporting gender inequality in the name of equality. If the role of non-religious institutions is confined in our times to protecting various religious inequalities in the name of equality, how could we imagine no religion fantasy? They are unable to understand the magnitude of damage they are causing out of their political correctness. With their help, religious extremist groups such as Muslim Brotherhood and Jamaat-e-Islami are paving their way to introduce Sharia law here in Canada. If there would have been Islamophobia, Canadians would have not elected 10 members of Muslim faith in Canadian Parliament. Under the guise of eliminating systemic racism and religious discrimination, MP Iqra Khalid tabled the second motion in the Parliament to curb Islamophobia in Canada. Apparently, it is a good cause. Most Canadians, including myself, should support the call of MP Khalid, who stands shoulder to shoulder with her own Muslim community. But MP Iqra Khalid should also look into the root causes of Islamophobia. Until addressing the root causes of this phenomena, it is impossible to address Islamophobia itself. Islamophobia is generally defined as a dislike of or prejudice against Islam or Muslims, especially as a political force. So, what are the root causes of disliking Islam and Muslims in Canada and elsewhere? For instance, when Canadians see nasty contents in this syllabus below, they really get offended. This syllabus is available on Islamic Center of North America's website. Quote, "Women are inferior to men. Western civilization is enemy of Islam. Songs and music are satanic work. A Muslim wife must obey her husband when he calls her to bed. A pregnant adulteress is to be stoned after giving birth." How Muslims will dominate the infidels, that website suggests their followers. But our Canadian Muslim organizations and Muslim MPs such as Iqra failed to condemn this syllabus of the Islamic Society of North America, an organization with which she and her family have good relations. On MP Khalid's would-be request, Islamic Center of North America may remove the syllabus from their website, but who will remove these things from their mindset? This mindset is the basic root cause to any potential Islamophobe. Would Muslim and non-Muslim parliamentarians who are striving to denounce Islamophobia strive equally hard to denounce and remove this mindset from the larger part of my own Muslim community? Without working on the root causes of Islamophobia, any effort would not bring any fruit to the cause. Similarly, when Canadians see Canada's security intelligence report about how over 180 Muslim Canadians have joined ISIS abroad, what message does that send to Canadians about my Muslim community? Have our Muslim MPs such as Iqra Khalid, Salma Zahid, or Umar Al-Ghabra, who have close ties with all the Islamic establishment in Canada and who speak very loud to protect the reputation of Muslim community, publicly spoken to Islamic centers about the need to curb radical mindset and distance themselves from the concept of armed jihad? None of Muslim MPs condemned any of the Islamic preachers who recently chose to sit down for Canada's national anthem in Mississauga. Muslim Student Association affiliated with the Muslim Brotherhood and who are active in 17 out of 19 high schools in Mississauga are seeking the right to preach Islam in the schools. What message do Canadians receive through such acts? Every year, various Islamic centers together arrange a hateful Al-Quds rally in Toronto against the Jewish community. What would be the reaction of Canadians to a conference of over 20,000 Muslims in Toronto in which some speakers talked about killing homosexuals? Ladies and gentlemen, Today we are revolving around few fundamental questions such as, what is multiculturalism? And what is the Canadian version of it? And what are Canadian values in context of new multiculturalism? According to the Department of Canadian Heritage definition, quote, multiculturalism ensures that all citizens can keep their identities, can take pride in their ancestry, and have a sense of belonging, unquote. Here a question arises. That belonging to what? To one's own ethnic community or to Canadian society? Canadian official multicultural policy states further, the Canadian experience has shown that multiculturalism encourages racial and ethnic harmony and cross-cultural understanding and discourages ghettoization, hatred, discrimination, and violence, unquote. In 1971, Canada was the first country in the world to adopt multiculturalism as an official policy. In 1982, multiculturalism was recognized by Section 27 of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedom. The Canadian Multiculturalism Act was then enacted by Prime Minister Brian Mulroney. Until 1982, multiculturalism was not experienced to this extent. The Canadian experience of true multiculturalism has shown its complexities during the past 4 decades, more precisely after 1990s. How does this discourage ghettoization? I mean, how does Canadian official multicultural policy discourage ghettoization? It is hard to explain this part while saying the multiculturalism also encourages the sense of belonging to one's own ethnicity. Critics often attack this contradiction, saying this is a particularly Canadian form of multiculturalism. Visible minorities such as Chinese, South Asian, Arab, Black, and South American communities are all across Canada, congregated mainly in big cities such as Toronto, Montreal, Vancouver, Calgary, Edmonton, Ottawa, and Hamilton. But the Canadians from European Caucasian nations who have long and strong feeling of owning this country raise the questions and concerns, hey, we have made the rules of law of this land. Hello, newcomers, welcome, but make no mistake, stoning or burning women alive won't be tolerated, and faces are not to be covered except at Halloween. In our multicultural mosaic, none of the ethnic communities except Muslims have fundamental clashes with Canadian values, such as women's liberties, openness, separation of religion from community, or questioning religious scriptures. Drinking alcohol or sexual freedom is equally shared by the majority and most other minority communities. Killing the non-believer is not acceptable. The Islamist clash with multiculturalism is not due to cultural reason. It is on the basis of mixing up of Islamic religious orders with cultural values. In our definition of multiculturalism, though, we didn't endorse religious scriptures. We needed to make it clear that our model of multiculturalism should be structured based on multiple cultures, not multiple religions. There is a separate debate to be had on how religion reflects in culture and to what extent. But religion had to be made separate from culture. Otherwise, it is hard to reach a harmonious and practical model of multiculturalism. Our multicultural model shakes when we try to introduce religious ethnicity into it. That's the point where we do not understand why things don't go smooth. Instead of blending different religions, the mixing up of cultures could be the right path to multiculturalism. True multiculturalism and integration can only flourish when cultural values, not religious values, come together. In the end, I would like to share my dire concern with you. My concerns are based on some recent happenings and growing Islamic radicalization in Canada. Last year, my wife Halima and myself got threatened and harassed publicly by 3 Canadian MPs of Muslim origin. MP Umar Al-Ghabra, MP Kara Khalid, and MP Salma Zahid threatened in a public gathering in Mississauga. They accused us of defaming Islam. Soon after this incident, I wrote an open letter to Prime Minister Trudeau about MP's misconduct, but I never received any reply from PMO in response to my complaint. I experienced day and night harassing environment created by those MPs and their supporters, and even by Pakistan Consulate Office in Toronto towards our open ideas. Our big ghettos in Mississauga, in Greater Toronto area particularly, have managed to convince mainstream Canadian politicians and policymakers to silence people like us. Our media is brainwashed by now about the overwhelming presence of so-called Islamophobic, without understanding the fact that if there would have been Islamophobes in Canada, Canadians would have not elected more than 10 MPs of Muslim faith. And my biggest concern is about emergence of Islamic radicalization at the highest level that may turn our society like Paris, where more than 1,000 areas are no-go zones. Thank you very much. I think I gave you enough time to grill me and to have coffee later on. Yes, sir.
Any questions for Tahir? We do have some time, so this is great. It's going to put us way ahead now. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you.
I don't exactly know how to phrase it, but the thing is, when you address the issues of Islamophobia, and as I said to a lot of people, I didn't really like the fact that there was any bill put forward that included something being against Islamophobia, because it's saying you're against a fear. And it didn't make any sense to me that you entrench a particular group into that fear. But now that it's kind of there, how do you even address fixing the issues that are there without actually coming off as bigoted against a specific group or like a religious-based group? I mean, if I say anything now, I come off as immediately Islamophobic.
Islamophobia, as their supporters define it, is fear of Islam and prejudice against Muslims. Our organizations, progressive Muslim organizations, we are actually non-religious people, let me clarify, but unfortunately, we are also using a progressive face of Islam that does not though exist, tactfully and strategically to counter Islamism. So our organizations are confronting the idea of existence of Islamophobia, in particular in Canadian society, because as you mentioned, it's a fear, it's a phobia. So it's something that does not actually exist. You just have fear. And there are substantial evidences to support that fear. I mean, I'm fearful going to markets, plazas when I hear news in Europe particularly. I mean, cars now, they are used as suicide bombers. So if being born in a Muslim sort of culture of faith or religion, whatever we call it, if I'm fearful of that thing, others would be as well. So the only, solution was when Mr. Trudeau was actually MP, he was not Prime Minister. I happened to meet him in the Parliament when I was giving some presentation. He confronted me on a couple of things in a standing committee. And I responded to him and I said, sir, probably you do not understand the complexities of victimhood card being played by some of our organizations. So this is a big concern, and I probably cannot answer precisely how to address that thing. But of course, we can create an awareness through media, mainstream media. Like people like me and my wife, 99% Muslims are 9 to 5 people, and media do not consider us Muslim enough. They only find those people, Muslims, with the niqab and with the beard and all those. So, our voice doesn't go anywhere. A gentleman yesterday asked me something and said that, has Prime Minister Trudeau's office contacted your progressive Muslim organizations for the past year and a half? I said no, because we are not Muslims enough for this government, particularly probably, to give her any advice about the community.
Hi. I'm just wanting to invite you to use the same critique that you bring to Islam to multiculturalism. As a woman, there are many culturally accepted practices across Canada and around the world that do not have their roots in religion, but that continue to affect women's lives, their ability to participate fully in public, the ways that they're treated in their homes. Female genital mutilation is one of those cultural practices which sometimes people say is religious, but it really is not in the Quran. So I think that it's important that when we talk about values, we talk about positive values or life-enhancing values or secular values, but cultural values can be just as prohibitive, particularly for women, as religious values are. So I just invite you to consider it.
No, very important question. Actually, first of all, I would like to clarify again between religion and culture. For instance, I'm a Punjabi. So when I meet Punjabi men and women and friends, we have a lot to share with each other. We can talk for days. We have same food and same jokes, same dress, same music. But when I meet my Arab Muslim fellow, he asked me, brother, how are you? And I asked him, brother, how are you? We are done. Though we share same religion, but our culture is entirely different. I'm absolutely fine sharing my everything with Indian or Pakistani Christian, with Hindu, with Sikh, because over there we share 100%. But when it comes to religious commonalities, we have just hardly 1% common thing. About women, issues in Islam. I wouldn't say that Islamic culture is very hard for me to accept Islamic culture, because Indonesian Muslims, they have Indonesian culture at first place. Islam is, as a religion for them, tells them few guidelines, but actually their life is derived from culture. So as is the case with Indian Muslims, as is the case with Arab Muslims, with European Muslims, we see in Bosnia. So culture is very important, and the problem is when we mix culture with religion. Actually, I should say when we mix religion with culture, all those complexities we observe. So women, for instance, we are talking about genital mutilation in Africa. That's another complex layer. Over there, religion does not subscribe for circumcision. Those tribal cultures subscribe for this. So it's a kind of overlapping in different societies. So, as I said, we have to use the same tool, religion, even if I do not agree with that tool, to bring reforms within the communities as well. And that's the only way we can handle the situation. Thank you.
I'm just going to follow up on what this young lady was saying here is, you perhaps don't know that Tahir and his wife own a television program, a studio called TAC TV, and they have ethnic programs on it, and they have many, many South Asian and other women who are hosts and dealing with the cultural issues that you just talked about. So they have created the avenue for all of us, women like myself and others from the community, to come and talk about it. His wife Halima is sitting there. She hosts 3 shows just on women's issues. So they're on Facebook as well. And you should see all the writing that is done by Tahir, but other people, the discussion that's going on. And people like me depend on them to open the communities for us. For example, the discussion. This young man was asking a question. I would love for you to ask that question on his show. How can I help? Because everybody here asks me, how can I help? How can I help? Get hold of Halima and Tahir and talk about it. That's what we have to do. And sometimes one person, 2 people can't do that. The point I came here to make is there is a huge majority of Muslims who are not happy with what is happening. We have, and he is and his wife are chair of 2 think tanks. What are their names? I forget. Think tanks that are doing tremendous work and working with radicalized youth as well, and the RCMP. But I want you to go away thinking that a large part of the community is not involved in radicalization and supporting this radicalization. And the face of that silent majority are these people who speak 4 languages, 5 languages. And I really would like, Tahir, to ask you to talk a little bit about forward-thinking Christians and the other thinking and the policy that you are helping with the U.S. people as well as in Canada. Thank you.
Thank you, Aruna. Actually, we are trying our best to create an awareness through media. As the first speaker mentioned, the need of media, actually need of parallel media to address those issues that are not being addressed by the mainstream media. So that is our, TAC TV is our new venture for the past 4 years, and we are trying our best, and we found that it is more efficient tool in terms handling those issues in terms creating awareness. Thank you.
One more. Hello.